All right, welcome to the Future of Contact Centers podcast. I'm your host, Trevor Clark. With me is Tiana Daly, our Chief Marketing Officer. And as usual, we're here to talk about trends and exciting developments in the contact center space. And specifically, Tiana, what are we talking about today?
So thanks for having me on, but we're going to dive into the customer center journey, specifically the contact center end of it, right? So when we think about customer journey, it really spans across your whole company, from marketing, right, that initial touch point, down to products, so what your user end experience is like.
Yeah.
But when we think about it from the contact center angle, there's an opportunity there to really deep dive on that journey. And what is it like when somebody calls your phone, hits your chat bot, maybe even uses one of your self-assisted tools to find support? How do you do this so that you can plan effectively, keep costs low, and really provide an awesome customer experience? So really, we want to take a look and say, like, what's that playbook? Like, how should contact center operators really think about this? And taking their slice of the customer journey and making it as great as possible.
Yeah, and that the customer journey, it sounds like, from the very moment someone hears of your company to the moment that they decide to leave and all the places in between, right? Is that right? Is that what
Yes.
we mean by journey? And yeah.
That's definitely it.
Yeah.
And I think oftentimes people don't give enough attention to the contact center journey.
Yeah.
It's almost like an afterthought. You're like, oh, well, we might have, frequently asked questions, or people might need help with payment. And so how do you design your contact center or optimize it? Like, what levers do you need to pull? Do you need to bring in an outsourcing partner? Do you need to leverage AI tools? Do you need an IVR? Like, what are some of the ways that experience could be great? Because your contact center is responsible for more than just a service hub, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot there with retention and loyalty. I mean, we're hearing some of the biggest companies revamp their contact center where agents are now helping, recommend products or helping provide advice. And they're just doing a lot more than, helping with a missed payment or troubleshooting.
It's pretty common. I think people undervalue the contact center and they forget like how powerful it is. I mean, it's the face or voice of your company, right? It might be the only human that a customer ever interacts with, and they're representing your brand. And it might be the most critical point, right? Because we all want self-service, we all want great messaging, great tools, great applications, but something's going to fail.
Yeah.
And that's your moment to make it better for that customer and keep that customer forever. And if you fumble with the human side of it, you might have lost that customer forever, and they'll never tell you. And you'll suffer that loss and the lack of growth. And it's just so critical that you have a solid team and think through those processes. I think the other side of it too is sometimes the contact center forgets that there's a whole nother world out there of messaging and applications, and the customer's perspective can get lost, especially from a contact center management side.
Exactly. And I think what contact center operators can really benefit from is if you understand and have your journey mapped out, you then have a basis to work on improvements, right? If you have no idea of how a customer might get from calling to an escalation, then how can you work on those improvements? If you have no idea why your self-assisted tools don't work, how are you going to know to give feedback to the other departments in your company to make improvements to support your customer experience?
Yeah.
So in addition to some of those benefits, right, doing the mapping, you get more efficient support workflows. Your agent experience is better, right? Because imagine onboarding and you're giving your agents a playbook of like, this is how it happens. These are the angles people can come in. You almost can give your agents an inside look of who and what they're getting, right? Yeah. The questions become more guided and it seems more personal. Hey, well, where did you start with this first? Or maybe a customer comes in and says, hey, I looked at your website and I wasn't able to find anything. Okay, great. Now you know the level of customer you're dealing with to better support your agents. They now know what resources to go to. Nothing is worse than you call a contact center and you could tell the agent is literally looking at the same resources that you literally just had trouble with.
Yeah,
like,
right.
This sucks. Like, I called you because I was looking for the next level of help.
Right.
So with that, you get that as well. Yeah. And you get better data, right? Because now you're able to see the different points. Where's the stopping points? Again, where can you pull other levers for support?
Yeah, so it sounds like a couple things. As an organization, knowing where those touch points are with your customer, where they could be kind of interacting with your brand, measuring, what's occurring at each of those touch points, because something is going to potentially break and you're going to want to identify it, or you're going to want to improve something. And then and it's the other value here is to make sure that the agents that are when they do have to get involved have a pretty clear picture of what the customer is experiencing.
Yes.
And not just from a textbook, but from a full holistic understanding of that customer's experience.
Yeah, and we talk about this all the time. Soft skills are one of the most in-demand skills for a great agent. That's really hard to teach. But you can almost fake soft skills by giving your agents as much data as possible to have and understand and empathize with the customer on maybe what led them to get to that point. Yeah. And that's where a customer-centered journey and mapping that out effectively is really helpful. Yeah. So in my mind, and there's a lot out there, right? We don't want to say that we're comprehensive, but there are some core questions that you should ask when you're mapping out a journey. And almost in this order, right? Who are your customers? Why are they contacting you, right? What are the problems that they need solved? What goal are they trying to achieve by contacting you, right? Nobody's called. Some people, I don't want to say this actually. Some people do call a contact center because they want to talk to somebody.
They do. It's true.
So maybe that is a goal too. And how do you help your agents kind of push that call to completion or resolution quickly? Yep. In what ways are your customers engaging with your contact center? What are the entry points? What experiences do you expect to deliver at each stage, right? So if somebody is going through, a chat bot, what should they come out with? If they are talking to an agent, what should they come out with? Yeah. And then what tools, resources, or knowledge are required at each of those points? What do your agents need? What data does that chatbot need? What mapping does that IVR need so that it's really effective? And then ultimately, what should the outcomes be at each of those points? So there's the big goal of why people are contacting you, but if they're going through each of those pipeline, what would be the end goal, right? Maybe when they talk with agents, upselling is at the end, right? Whereas with the chatbot, it could be an opportunity to upgrade, right? And so these are also opportunities for you to help move some of your business objectives with the right planning.
I think the questions you outlined are really good because you're going from a strategic plan, and then you're sort of distilling it down to the outcomes that are really tactical. This is where I think a lot of companies miss that transition. I think strategy is fun, right? Yeah. Or getting creative is fun, but now how do you translate it into real results? I think that's really key. So these questions kind of help you take you from this idea to reality, and then implement it into your day-to-day ops, right? So that it's always your journey and your customer experience is aligned with what you envisioned.
Yeah.
And you can pivot when it doesn't.
Imagine as a contact center operator, your executives are coming to you and saying how can you drive more revenue from your contact center? Yeah. You could start to think of all these really cool ideas, and to your point, it's great planning, great strategy, but how do you create a work back plan? Yeah. And a contact center mapping process or exercise is a really great way to kind of help fill in those gaps and give your executive team a playbook that says, I need this money, I need these resources, this is how I'm going to make this happen. Because you're almost taking a marketing mindset, right? In the same way that marketers have to think about, well, how do we get a customer from first touch point to converting to a sale? You have to think, how do we get a customer to be more loyal, to be happier, to retain them? And it works in that same way.
Yeah, and with this sort of detailed understanding of all the touch points, you can then actually, when you get that question, instead of having to come up with something super creative, sometimes the answer is right in your existing workflow. It's like, we keep losing customers at this point. So maybe we need to go invest here and see, fix this step of the process. And by the way, I think we can yield 20% more, sales or something like that. Yeah. It becomes very precise. And same on the retention side. I know we're talking about acquisition a lot, but when customers leave you, there's an amazing amount of information that you should be extracting from that to make sure that you're actually adding more customers than you're losing. And so this leaky bucket is important to measure as well. So because you might need more sales, but really the best way to accomplish that is through better retention. That's easier to keep a customer, I think, than to get a new one,
sure.
Right?
So when we think about those core questions and, knowing that cost and performance are some of the key priorities that even drive a contact center to think about these things, everybody's goals are keeping your costs low and your customers happy, right?
Yep.
So kind of thinking about those questions, I really want to focus in on the most important ones, right? Like, because we did talk about a lot. So like, what are the 4 or 5 key ones? So when we think about who the customer is, it's really important to think about age, right? And this is a great opportunity to bring your marketing people in, right? And thinking about, okay, is it going to be your millennials that are contacting you, or is it your Gen Xers that are contacting you?
And there's pretty clear preferences in communication at those. Yeah.
Like there's huge generational differences.
Yeah.
We've seen that Gen Z loves the idea of chat, right? And some millennials like to call. Gen X wants to get on the phone, right? The idea of chat it almost gives the impression that it's not the white glove service that they feel they've invested in with the quality of product that they've gotten. So thinking about that, right? And also what times are they going to be calling, right? So again, a younger audience might want to engage with you late at night, whereas an older audience might say, this is the first thing, like this is my eat the frog for the day, right? Yeah. And that also helps you determine your workforce planning, when you staff the right agents. Like it can also help give you a clue into what goes next. Yep. Then if we go and double click on why are your customers contacting you? This is also a really great understanding of your product. And this could be very helpful for agents as well. Is it that most of the issues that people are calling are payment, right? Is it troubleshooting? Do you have a tech product? So some of these are really key. It also helps you determine like at what points could there possibly be escalation, right? Especially if you understand why. And maybe there's some specialized transactions that have to happen here. And this is key when determining what type of agents do you need to hire for your workforce,
I couldn't agree more. I mean, you should be looking at this particular escalations, common call reasons, and that should inform your product roadmap, your marketing communications. Like there's probably something amiss on either the product or the way it's communicated that can help improve those scenarios. And then if there's real fallout where it does turn into an escalation, I mean, those should be handled really, like those should be monitored one by one, like in depth. We should understand exactly what those are and keep them to a minimum. Yeah. I mean, that's what's going to drive your customers either away from ever doing business with you or away because they're tired of you. They've been doing this is the core of the problem, right?
Yeah, and this is where you really start to drive costs down for your contact center. Imagine as a contact center leader, this will probably get you a promotion if you can figure it out. But like, if you're able to solve this leak, right, or this expense, like let's say that when a certain product launches, your calls go up like 200% for the same issue, and through the feedback you get from your customers, and because your agents are trained to identify these trends because you understand what your contact center journey normally should be, this is something you can easily raise to your executives and say, hey, this needs to change about the product. Specifically, here's a data point how. And in that way, let's say product goes and makes that revision, you've now cut that out of your contact center, you're saving money, and that's where like the true change comes, right? It's this larger collaboration. And we hear some really awesome voices in the CX space talking about removing the silos that happen between customer service, marketing, product, and have this more holistic approach to customer journey. And this is really the start of it. So if you become fully invested in mapping your contact center journey and bring that to the team, it really creates what you're trying to break down and really help the whole business really drive to revenue and greater objectives.
Yeah, I had a cool experience working with an executive once that we were in a turnaround scenario, and it was a very large, complex business with engineering resources, marketing resources. Everyone was in their silo, and this person was like incredible, like highly effective, like basically broke down the core problems of the company in record time. I'm talking like weeks, whereas the previous leadership had spent years trying to solve these problems. And the main thing that this person did was actually go to every single call center. We had quite a few across the country, and he would do roundtables. Every week he would go to a new call center, have the executives sort of have meetings there, and they'd fly around, and he just set up a 12-person roundtable, and he wouldn't say much. He would just say, "What's going on?" And he then just let the agents from the contact center actually talk. And once they got rolling, it was like he learned everything. In about 30 seconds, he figured out where all the key issues are. And I think the important thing to remember here is contact center needs a seat at the table.
Yeah.
Because without the contact center's voice and in the customer journey, it can never be fully understood. And,
Totally.
And he cracked that immediately, and it turned the company around in record time.
Yeah, these types of exercises in my mind can only help a contact center unless you're not invested in it, right? And it's like anything. If you don't put the effort into it to make it worthwhile, it could become useless. It could live in a Google Doc somewhere or a spreadsheet and it dies. But if it's something that you and your team and your leadership can become fully invested in, it could be a really great source of planning and knowledge. And then when we think about ultimately, right, like how is this answering some of your questions about KPIs, right? Like what data points are you reviewing in this journey? Is your average handling time, your first call resolution? Like these are opportunities for you to figure out, okay, what experiences are impacting these KPIs to improve?
Yeah.
And when we think about it and kind of giving a nod to like, okay, how does this point back to a lot of what we think about? Contact center planning allows you to figure out ways to optimize your workforce, right? So once you've mapped out your customer journey, you know why they're calling, you know who's calling, you know what for, you know what you want, then you think to yourself, what type of agents do I need to create this experience? Is it solely self-service platforms? Some contact centers are going completely virtual. For some, it's like, I need certified, I need, experience. I need them to have some type of credential to work in my, contact center. That's going to add the most value. Or is it flexible outsourced agents, right? Yeah. Do you realize that there's an opportunity for you to bring in gig, which is really great? And, I think a scenario that I like to think of is maybe it's all of these, right? Mm-hmm. If you have a contact center journey that's really effective, it could be self-assisted resources at the beginning, right? To minimize the expense of having, calls that could just easily be solved with
a lot of people don't want to call. I mean, even if you're in the Gen X or older generation, like you'd probably still say you'd rather just have the answer and not have to pick up the phone. So it has to be, I think self-assistance has to be part of every journey strategy, right?
And in what ways? Like what does that, like what platforms do you need to explore? What money or budgeting do you need behind that? And what do other departments add to that to help create something that's really effective for the customer?
And you don't want to overdo it either. I think some companies go too far and make themselves unavailable to their customers, and I think that's a problem. So you do have to strike that balance, especially considering your age demographic and contact preferences, right?
Totally.
Totally.
Because all that matters. And then you think, okay, going back to our scenario, you have your self-assisted resources planned out. Then you're like, okay, well, what type of agent should we get to handle day-to-day? Maybe you realize everybody likes to call you on Saturday from 9 to 12. And currently, your in-house agents work 9 to 5.
They don't want that.
Yes, it's going to be impossible. Nobody's going to raise their hand, and if at all, your attrition's going to probably go higher, right? Yeah. This is where flexible agents can come in, right? Flexible agents allow you to then create a really great CX experience because you're now able to understand, you fully understand what the journey is. And then you could slot in, the right partner. Yeah. You can use a flexible gig CX model to fit in. And then your in-house agents, which I think of are like your final gatekeepers, your, expert wizard, your Gandalfs, right? They're there to handle the really hard stuff and can even help you continue to improve on this customer-centered journey, right? Yeah. Continue to train your flexible agents, continue to add value and review the insights and the data to make your self-assisted platforms great. And now you have this really awesome workforce mix that aligns with your vision. And you can really start to then get excited about making performance adjustments because you have all of the right tools now.
Yeah, I think especially in a situation where somebody feels a need to talk to you, something's probably wrong, and this means it's really critical for you to be there when your customer needs you. I believe in that. So the flexible resources, especially if they're calling you on a Saturday, you need to have a workforce that's ready for that wants that. And so it takes a multi-layered approach, right? And you also need your core in-house team, but you need the people that are really capable, high performers that are going to be there when the customer calls, not make them wait on hold for an hour or two. Like that's just an insult. and then you need to arm the customer with all the information they need, possibly to self-serve, if at all possible.
Yeah.
And to me, then you're world-class customer experience, and you've thought it through. You're still gonna have issues. You're always gonna have issues.
For sure.
But thinking of that strategy and like executing the way you've laid out, I think is best in class. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
Nice, yeah.
So that's about it. We definitely wanted to chat about, contact center journey. As always with our show, we want to give tactical, punchy advice to really help you get back to what you do and what you love doing.
Yeah.
And so naturally, if you have questions about optimizing your workforce or your contact center journey, most immediately, maybe collaborate with your marketing team, right? Because a marketer is going to have this insight to at least help you frame this.
This is why you're co-hosting this one.
Yeah, right. But also, ask us anything. Naturally, reach out to us on LinkedIn, give us a line, fill us out, find us on our website. But thanks for having me on this episode. This was really great.
Yeah, thanks for being a part of it. And yeah, let us know if you have any feedback or thoughts on this. I think it's an exciting topic. I think we're going to keep diving in here. So thanks, Tiana.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody. Tune in next time.